Wes Streeting, how would Labour end the junior doctor strikes?
The most important thing that the government, the Prime Minister, should be doing now is to get the doctors and the consultants around the table and negotiate a way through. I think it's outrageous, actually, that given this strike action, which is unprecedented in itself, has inflicted untold misery on patients who are waiting longer, cancelled, delayed appointments, operations, procedures, waiting in pain.
Probably dying as well. Probably people are dying while they can't get treated.
There's no doubt. I mean, Labour's own research on this has shown that there are people literally dying on NHS waiting lists, yet the Prime Minister hasn't met the doctors at all, and the Health Secretary hasn't sat down to negotiate since March earlier this year. So, given alongside the cost of living, this is the biggest crisis in the country right now. I don't understand why the Prime Minister isn't giving this his full attention. And I've come to the conclusion, he's basically saying, well, I made this pledge to cut waiting lists. I know I haven't got a chance of delivering it now, but at least if I can blame the doctors with these ongoing strikes, I'm off the hook.
He's right on the pay review body's offering 60%. The doctors want 35%. What would Labour pay?
You're going to have to compromise somewhere. I mean,
20%,
I've said to the doctors, look, 35% overnight is not a policy that Labour would be able to afford. It's not maybe popular with everyone, but I'd rather be honest this side of an election than break promises the other side of the election if we win. I look at the record of the last Labour government. We didn't have national strikes in the NHS, and that's because we treated the staff with respect. And we got them on the path to full pay restoration. In fact, before the 97 general election, Labour was under enormous pressure to make the sort of commitments people are asking me to make now. Were rightly reluctant to make promises unless they knew they could keep them. And yet that Labour government did deliver full pay restoration. How did they do that? They got the economy growing so they could invest in public services, invest in our people in public services without hiking up taxes in the way that Conservatives
in the fifth year of a Labour government, then you might get back to this 35% pay rise they want now.
I don't know about in one term, but I'd be willing to sit down and negotiate with the doctors to say, look, I recognise the pressure you're under. What can we do to help you with the cost of living? Also, there are a wide range of issues that they're raising that aren't related to pay, but are about their everyday working conditions, and I think are directly linked to retention, because as well as needing to recruit more staff, and Labour's plans involve the biggest expansion of NHS staff in history, we've got to keep the people we've got. And I see people walking out of the NHS in droves, and I think alongside the recruitment problem, retention is the other big challenge. And so if we don't get this right, the risk isn't just that these doctors walk out for more strike action for a few more days. They walk out of the NHS altogether, and we can't afford to lose the doctors, the nurses, the other NHS staff that we need to get patients seen on time.
Just quickly on the PM's net zero announcements this week. Will Labour reverse his plans to delay the ban on new petrol car and diesel cars by to 2035?
Yeah, we will, because we think that, look at the industry voices that have come out in recent days. What the Prime Minister has done is really short-sighted. It has actually created more instability and uncertainty for businesses who are looking to invest in Britain. And I think we've got to be clear about what this ban is. It's not a ban on existing cars. So no one with a petrol or diesel car should think, oh my God, I'm going to have to replace it, in a few years' time. It's about new cars coming up for sale. And the reason why the policy that the government had until literally this week was important is because we've got to build the energy infrastructure this country needs, the charging infrastructure, and on top of the renewable and new nuclear power we need to give Britain its energy security back, to create new jobs, new industries, particularly in parts of the country like Teesside, the northeast of Scotland, Wales, where we've seen massive deindustrialisation, the West Midlands. If we get our energy policy right, our economic policy right, our industrial policy right, and bring them all together, we can deliver lower bills, more energy security.
It loads of costs on working families. That's the point, isn't it?
Well, under Labour's plans, working families would be paying less. So, for example, Labour's plans to insulate 19 million homes would save families hundreds of pounds a year. If we get the industrial strategy right, there will be new, well-paid jobs in industries that will enable us to bring bills down. Because at the moment, the short-sightedness we've had as a country for far too long means that we're reliant on the whims of the international energy markets. We want to give Britain our energy security back, so we have our own energy being produced here, and we're not reliant on foreign dictators or volatile energy markets. we are in this bizarre situation where we are subsidising the taxpayers of other countries who have big stakes in our energy industry. Why not have Great British Energy owning our own energy, reinvesting the profits for the sake of our own people? So for Labour, we think that the path to net zero and the path to our own energy security can be one that actually saves families money, not costs us more. And the risk for the Prime Minister and the risk he's created for our country is that people don't know where Britain is. They don't know what we stand for. They find it hard to make investment decisions because Rishi Sunak chops and changes with the weather. And at the moment, I think this is true of him across the board. I don't think he's really leading his party. He follows whoever last came in to see him and sat on him.
Just very quickly, for Labour, what does Brexit mean? Does it mean doing what the EU wants, closer alignment?
No, I don't think so. We've left the European Union. It means that we make our own choices. We want to work in partnership with the European Union as our nearest and arguably closest allies. There's lots we've got in common to tackle on our continent, whether that's small boats, international crime and terrorism, climate change, the breakthroughs in medical science and technology that we can achieve at scale. There are lots of areas where we need to work together and cooperate. But let me say this as someone who campaigned for Remain and passionately so. We got the message, right? So we lost the referendum. We lost 2 general elections subsequently. I'm not going to pretend I was happy about it, but I also know that it wouldn't be in this country's interest to relive those battles and to keep on looking back when we should be looking forward to the future. And I think that's what Keir Starmer's been trying to do, and not just in relation to the European Union and his visit to see the President of France recently, but in terms of the conversations we've been having with our allies in the United States of America and North America, our allies in Australia and New Zealand, and long-standing allies of our country and right across the world. But I think people, they're looking to Britain to see, well, what do you stand for? Where do you fit in the global race now? Because I think that's not been clear for too long, and I think there's an opportunity for Labour to reset our foreign policy and to look to the future, not relive the battles of the past.
Well, Wes Streeting, thanks for joining us today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.